I need to say this before anything else. If you've ever worked night shifts inside an old hospital, you already know there's a kind of silence in those buildings that doesn't exist anywhere else. Not real silence, hospital silence. The kind filled with humming lights, distant pipes, air moving through vents that should stopped working years ago. And sometimes, something else. Something that sounds almost human. I didn't believe any of those stories before Blackwater Psychiatric opened its doors to me, or what was left of it. The place had been abandoned since 1994, northern Ohio, about 40 minutes outside Cleveland, buried behind dead trees and rusted chain-link fencing like the state wanted people to forget it had ever existed. Most people online knew it because of urban exploration forums. Blackwater State Hospital, everybody had theories. Illegal experiments, mad urban disappearances. Underground tunnels connecting the isolation wards to the morgue. Standard internet horror crap. At least that's what I thought. Back then, I was running a small YouTube channel with 2 friends. Nothing huge. Just overnight explorations, dead malls, embry schools, abandoned churches. That kind of thing. Tyler handled the cameras. Mason did sound. And me, Abby, was the idiot who kept agreeing to go inside places nobody should have entered after dark. We got to Blackwater around 11:38 p.m. I remember the exact time because Tyler kept joking about how the place looked like something straight out of Silent Hill. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Fog sat low across the parking lot, thick enough to blur the broken ambulance bay near the entrance. Our headlights swept across rows of shattered windows that looked black from the outside, like the building was hollow, watching us. "Dude," Mason muttered from the back seat, "tell me you brought extra batteries this time." I grabbed my backpack, chocked the gear again. 2 flashlights, Sony camcorder, portable mic rig, bot hand charger, and a cheap flashlight from Walmart that already felt like it was dying in my hand. "Relax," I said. "We were only doing 2 hours." That sentence still bothers me, because I genuinely believed we'd leave after 2 hours. The front entrance had been boarded up years ago, but someone had cut a gap through the side fence recently. Probably other explorers. The second we stepped onto hospital property, temperature changed, not dramatically, just enough to feel wrong, like walking into a basement after being outside all day. Cold air settled against my skin beneath the hoodie, damp heavy. The smell hit next, mildew, old bleach, standing water, and something metallic underneath all of it. Tyler lifted the camcorder toward the building. "All right," he whispered dramatically into the lens. Blackwater Psychiatric Hospital, one of the most haunted locations in the Midwest. "Don't start that ghost hunter voice already." Mason groaned. Their arguing echoed strangely across the parking structure. That was the first thing I noticed. The echo sound traveled too far there. Even quiet noises seemed stretched thin through the dark, like the building was listening carefully. The side access door was already cracked open. Not broken open. Open just slightly. I remember stopping when I saw it. Something about that tiny gap bothered me immediately. "See that?" I asked quietly. Tyler pushed the door wider with his sleeve. Metal groaned softly. Inside was darkness. Not normal darkness either. Hospital darkness feels different, longer somehow. The beam from my flashlight slid across overturned wheelchairs, my mold-stained walls. Old patient directories hanging crooked beside peeling paint, somewhere deeper inside the building. A fluorescent light buzzed weakly. Mason laughed nervously. "Nope, absolutely not. That sound alone is enough for me." But we still went in. Of course we did. That's the thing about places like Blackwater. Curiosity overrides instinct. Every single time. The lobby looked frozen in time. Papers scattered across the floor, rotting couches. A reception desk coated in dust thick enough to leave fingerprints in. And behind it, An old analog clock, stopped at 2:14. I don't know why that detail stayed with me. Maybe because later, 2:14 kept showing up everywhere. Tyler kept filming while Mason tested audio levels. I wandered farther toward the west hallway. The flashlight beam shook slightly in my hand, though I blamed the cold at the time. Long corridor, yayoed tile floors, doors hanging half open, everything silent, except for that distant electrical buzzing. And then I saw the wheelchair, old hospital transport chair, rust along the handles, one footrest missing. It sat halfway down the corridor, facing the wall. I remember thinking it looked staged, like another explorer had moved it there for photos. "Yo," Tyler called from behind me. "Get a shot next to it." I turned toward him for maybe 3 seconds, 4 at most, just long enough for Tyler to adjust focus. Then I looked back. The wheelchair had moved not far, maybe 3 feet, but now it faced me directly. Nobody laughed. Nobody said anything. The hallway just swallowed the silence. Mason finally spoke first. "Okay." His voice sounded smaller now. "Which one of you touched that?" I didn't move it. Tyler said immediately, "Neither did I, and I know how that sounds. I know exactly how it sounds. But there are moments your body reacts before your brain catches up." My stomach tightened, hands cold, that weird pressure behind your eyes, when adrenaline starts flooding in, because deep down, something primitive inside me already knew. We weren't alone in that hallway. Then the fluorescent buzzing stopped. Instantly. No fading, no flickering, just silence. Complete silence. And in that silence, Abby noticed something standing at the far end of the corridor. At first, I thought it was a trick of the flashlight. Just another shadow. But shadows don't wear hospital gowns. She stood completely still beneath the dead fluorescent fixture. Tall. Thin skin so pale it almost reflected the light back at us. Long black hair hanging wet against her shoulders. And even from that distance, Abby could tell something was wrong with her face. Tyler whispered beside me, "Dude." The camcorder trembled slightly in his hands. She wasn't there a second ago. The woman tilted her head slowly. Not curious, not confused, just wrong. Like a person pretending to understand human movement. And then Tyler zoomed the camera closer. That's when we realized something that made all 3 of us freeze where we stood. Her eyes were open, too wide, completely unblinking. But there were no pupils, no irises, just pale white staring back at us from the end of the hallway. And somewhere above us, hospital intercom crackled to life. Then a woman's voice whispered softly through the darkness. "Patient visitation hours are over. You shouldn't still be here." Nobody moved after the intercom voice stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, like the entire building was waiting for one of us to say something stupid. Tyler lowered the camcorder first. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's not funny anymore." Nobody answered him, because the woman was still there, standing motionless at the end of the corridor beneath the dead fluorescent panel, not twitching, not breathing, just watching us. I remember trying to convince myself she was homeless, or another explorer messing with people online. That would made sense, except for the eyes, and the way the hallway suddenly felt longer. It's hard to explain that part. When fear really starts settling into your body, space changes. Distances stop making sense. Your brain begins measuring rooms differently. That corridor looked deeper now than it had 30 seconds earlier. Tyler tried forcing a laugh. "Yo," he called weakly toward her. "You work here or what?" Nothing. The woman didn't react at all. No blinking, no shift in posture. Then Mason grabbed my sleeve suddenly. "Dude," his voice cracked slightly. "Look at the floor." I angled the flashlight downward. Wet footprints, bare feet, trailing across the yellow tile toward us. Fresh dark water glistening against the floor. but the footprints stopped halfway down the hallway, as if whoever made them had simply vanished before reaching us. Tyler swore under his breath. Nope. He backed up immediately. We got the footage. Let's go. And honestly, I wanted to agree. Every instinct in my body was screaming to leave, but curiosity is poison in places like that. You keep needing one more answer, one more explanation, one more look. I glanced back toward the woman. She was gone. Just gone. The hallway stood empty again. No movement, no sound. Only the distant buzz of electricity returning somewhere deeper in the building. Bzzz. Mason nearly jumped. Jesus Christ. Tyler spun his flashlight around wildly. Did she move? I didn't see her move, I said. That sentence haunted me later, because none of us ever saw her move, not once. We returned to the lobby after that, mostly because nobody wanted to admit we were scared. That's another thing people don't understand about fear. You don't become rational, you become embarrassed. 3 grown men with cameras convincing themselves everything has a logical explanation, because the alternative feels impossible. Tyler reviewed the footage while Mason unpacked extra lighting equipment near the reception desk. I walked toward the old nurse station beside the lobby. Important files still littered the counters, most destroyed by water damage, mold crawling across paper edges like black veins. The smell back there was worse. Wet drywall, rust, that old sour hospital smell trapped inside abandoned buildings. My flashlight drifted across a cracked bulletin board, missing patient notices, schedules, medication charts. Then I noticed the photographs, staff pictures, dozens of them pinned along the wall beneath a faded sign that read, Blackwater Psychiatric. Western Ward staff most faces had been damaged by moisture, except one. A woman with pale skin and dark hair stared directly into the camera from the center of the board. Nurse uniform, thin smile, eyes almost colorless under the flash. I felt my stomach tighten instantly, because I recognized her not exactly, but enough that same face. Older maybe, healthier, but still her, the pale lady, before I could call the others over. Static, the intercom crackled again overhead. All 3 of us froze. A low humming sound flooded through the ceiling speakers first, then silence, then breathing. Slow, uneven breathing. Tyler looked up immediately. You hearing this? The breathing continued for maybe 10 seconds, close enough to sound like someone standing directly beside the microphone. Then a soft female voice whispered, Room checks begin shortly. Static and the speaker cut dead again. Mason grabbed his gear instantly. Okay, done. We're done. But Tyler was already excited again. That stupid adrenaline rush content creators get when they think they've captured something viral. Bro, this is gold, he whispered. Do you understand what we just recorded? That's not a good thing. Mason snapped. Tyler ignored him. He kept rewinding footage from the hallway encounter, fought by frame, trying to catch the moment the woman disappeared. Then his expression changed, slowly. The color drained from his face. What? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned the camera screen toward us. The footage showed the hallway exactly as we remembered it. Wheelchair. Dark corridor. The pale lady standing beneath the fluorescent light. But something was different. Something none of us had noticed in real time. There was another figure standing behind her, almost completely hidden in the darkness, tall, motionless, human-shaped. Watching from deeper inside the corridor, my chest tightened instantly. Pause that. Tyler froze the frame. The second figure barely looked human, too thin. Its arms hung strangely low beside its body, and its face. Jesus Christ, its face looked blurred. Not out of focus blurred, wrong blurred. Like the camera itself refused to process it correctly. Mason stepped backward immediately. Nope, I'm out. But Tyler zoomed further, and the second he did, the screen distorted violently. Static exploded across the camcorder display. The speakers released a piercing shriek that echoed through the lobby hard enough to make me yank my headphones off. Then the footage cut completely black. The building lights flickered overhead once, twice, then stabilized again. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Finally, Mason whispered, "Tell me that was corrupted footage." Tyler stared at the dead screen, his hands shaking slightly now. "It drained the battery." "What?" "The battery was full. He ejected it. Dead. Completely dead. And then we heard it. A wheelchair moving somewhere upstairs. Creak metal wheels slowly turning across tile flooring. All three of us looked upward instinctively. The sound continued. Slow dragging. One wheel slightly damaged. Creak, creak, pause. Creak, creak somewhere above the lobby ceiling. Mason whispered, "There's nobody else here." I wanted to believe that, I really did. But the building no longer felt abandoned. It felt occupied, like we had walked into someone else's routine halfway through the night. Tyler finally spoke. "We should check the second floor." Mason stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Absolutely not. We already got enough." But Tyler kept looking toward the stairwell, toward the sound, and I hate admitting this now. Part of me wanted to see it too. Fear does strange things to curiosity, especially when your brain hasn't fully accepted danger yet. We compromised. Quick second floor walkthrough. 10 minutes max. Then we leave. That was the agreement. The west stairwell sat near the old intake ward. Concrete steps, rust along the railings, emergency lights barely glowing red overhead. Every footstep echoed too loudly, the deeper we climbed. Colder the air became. Not natural cold, hospital cold, artificial like refrigerated air, lingering decades after the machines stopped running. Halfway up the stairs, Mason stopped suddenly. "You guys smell that?" I did. Burnt hair faint, but unmistakable. Tyler aimed the flashlight upward. The second floor hallway came into view. And immediately something felt wrong. The floor looked cleaner than downstairs. Less dust, less debris, as though someone had been walking there recently. The corridor stretched endlessly beneath flickering fluorescent lights. Hospital room doors lined both sides, some open, some closed. And near the far end, a wheelchair sat motionless beneath the lights. Facing away from us, Creak one wheel turned slightly on its own, then stopped. Nobody moved. I remember hearing my own heartbeat inside my ears. "Evie, uneven," Tyler whispered. "Tell me that's airflow." But there was no airflow, not even a draft. The hallway air felt dead. Still, then a sound came from one of the patient rooms nearby, very soft, almost polite. 3 knocks against wood. Tock, tock, tock. We all turned toward room 216. The door sat barely cracked open, darkness inside clinked darkness. Then a woman's voice spoke quietly from within the room. "You're late." Mason backed into the stairwell immediately. "Nope," the voice continued softly. Calm, gentle even. "I've been waiting a very long time." Tyler's flashlight trembled toward the doorway. The beam illuminated part of the room slowly. Old hospital bed, rust stains along the frame, peeling wallpaper. And standing in the far corner beside the window, the pale lady, closer now, much closer. Her head tilted slightly too far sideways, wet black hair hanging across her face, hospital gown dragging against the floor. And this time, we could see her mouth, smiling not wide, not aggressive, just enough to feel deeply wrong. Then the fluorescent lights above us died all at once. Darkness swallowed the hallway instantly, and somewhere directly beside me, Abby heard barefoot steps, slow, wet. Approaching through the darkness, hit the hallway so fast it felt physical. 1 second we could still see the room. The pale lady standing beside the window. That smile. Then everything vanished. Complete blackness. Mason swore loudly somewhere behind me. Tyler dropped the flashlight. I heard it clatter across tile flooring before rolling away into the dark. And then, Eek! The wheelchair moved again. Closer this time. Much closer. The sound echoed through the hallway like metal dragging across bone. I fumbled for my backup flashlight with numb fingers, my breathing already getting too loud, too fast. Klmick, the beam snapped on neppy hallway. The wheelchair still sat near the far end beneath dead fluorescent lights. But room 216 was empty now. The pale lady was gone. Tyler grabbed his flashlight from the floor. "We're leaving," he said immediately. No arguments this time. Even he sounded shaken now. Mason was already halfway into the stairwell. "Move. Right now." We started back toward the stairs quickly, trying not to look down the side hallways as we passed them. That's when we noticed the doors. Every patient room door was open now, all of them. Slowly swinging inward, as if someone had walked down the corridor, opening each one while the lights were out. I remember my stomach dropping when I realized something else. The rooms weren't empty. Some still had beds inside, chairs, medical equipment, but others looked occupied, not by people, just impression statues beneath blankets, something sitting motionless in the darkness beside beds. Figures that disappeared the second flashlight beams landed directly on them. "You seeing this?" Tyler whispered. Nobody answered, because none of us wanted to confirm it out loud. The stairwell door finally came into view. Mason grabbed the handle instantly, pulled hard. Nothing. It stuck. Pull harder. The metal door wouldn't move. Not jammed, not locked. It felt held shut from the other side. Tyler slammed his shoulder into it. The impact echoed violently through the corridor. Still nothing. And then intercom crackled alive again overhead. Static, a soft humming noise followed. Then the woman's voice returned. A calm patterned art. "Security to Ward B. Static Utlight visitors remain inside the facility." The fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead for half a second. Just enough. Just enough for us to see someone standing at the far end of the hallway again. Not the pale lady. This one was taller, broad shoulders, hospital orderly uniform, hanging loosely from its frame, its face hidden completely in shadow, but its head was turned too far sideways, like a broken mannequin trying to imitate human posture. The lights died again instantly. Mason cursed under his breath. We're not alone. No one argued anymore, because deep down, we already knew that. Tyler finally forced the stairwell door open after another violent shove. The second it opened, cold air rushed upward from below us. Not from outside, from deeper underground. And with it came that smell again. Bleach, mold, burnt hair. Something wet and rotten underneath everything else. Mason covered his nose immediately. Jesus Christ. We stumbled down the stairs fast, too fast. The flashlight beams bounced wildly against concrete walls as panic finally started replacing logic. That's the moment everything stopped feeling like exploration footage. Now it felt like survival. The lobby should have been directly beneath us. That's where the stairs led earlier. But when we reached the bottom, we weren't in the lobby anymore. The stairwell opened into another hospital corridor. Different floor, different wing, longer, narrower, rows of isolation rooms lining both walls. Heavy steel doors with tiny reinforced windows. My chest tightened instantly. This isn't right. Tyler looked around frantically. We went down. I know, but the lobby's not here. None of us understood it. The architecture made no sense anymore, and somehow, that terrified me more than seeing the pale lady herself, because monsters are easier to process than impossible spaces. The hallway lights buzzed faintly overhead. Some still worked here, barely. Sick yellow light flickering across peeling walls. I noticed words scratched into the paint beside one of the isolation doors. Don't. Look away from her, the letters looked fresh. Not decades old, fresh. Mason saw it too. Nope. He started backing away immediately. Then Tyler's flashlight caught movement behind one of the reinforced windows. A face standing inside the room. Pale skin, dark hair. The pale lady watching us silently through the glass. Tyler stepped closer before any of us could stop him. Dude, don't. But curiosity got him again. It always did. He raised the camera slowly toward the window, and the second the lens pointed directly at her, the hallway lights exploded. Pop, pop, pop. Glass rained across the floor. Darkness slammed into us again. Mason screamed somewhere to my left. Then came the barefoot sounds, not one set. Multiple, wet footsteps moving through the corridor around us, fast circling. I spun the flashlight wildly. Nothing there, but the sounds kept moving. Closer, closer, closer. Tock, tock. A metal door somewhere behind us began rattling violently, then another, then another. Isolation room doors shaking all down the corridor simultaneously. Bang, 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 like something inside wanted out. Tyler grabbed my arm hard. Run. We bolted blindly through the hallway, flashlights jerking across walls covered in peeling patient drawings. Faces scratched into concrete, messages carved into paint. Show watches, when you blink don't let her, stand behind youth nurses. Never left my lungs burned immediately. The air down there felt wrong. Too cold, too thick, like breathing through wet cloth. Then Mason suddenly stopped dead ahead of us. Oh my God. His flashlight beam pointed toward the intersection ahead. A nurse station sat in the center of the hallway, and surrounding it, wheelchairs, at least 20 of them, all facing inward like an audience, motionless beneath flickering lights. Some old, some rusted completely through. Some still holding restraints along the armrests. Tyler whispered, "Who moved those?" Because there was no chance they'd naturally end up positioned like that. Not perfectly, not intentionally. And at the center of the wheelchairs stood the pale lady, closer than ever before. Her hospital gown hung loosely from her body now, damp fabric dragging across the floor. Her skin almost glowed beneath the failing fluorescent lights. And this time, we could see her eyes clearly. No pupils, no color, just pale white staring directly into us. Her mouth twitched slightly, like she was remembering how to smile. Then she spoke for the first time. Her voice sounded wrong immediately. Too soft, too calm, like someone speaking through damaged speakers underwater. You came back. None of us moved, I couldn't. My legs felt locked in place. The pale lady tilted her head slowly, wet strands of black hair sliding across her face, and then she asked, "Do you remember me?" Something about that sentence hit me harder than everything else. Because she didn't sound angry. She sounded disappointed. Like we had forgotten her. The wheelchairs around her creaked softly. One turning slightly on its own, creak then another, creak and another. All of them slowly rotating toward us together. My body reacted before my brain did. Run. We turned instantly. Sprint, pure panic now. The hallway behind us erupted with movement. Wheelchairs screeching across tile, metal rattling, barefoot steps slapping rapidly against wet flooring somewhere behind us. Not walking anymore, running. Tyler nearly slipped turning the next corner. His flashlight beam flashed across another hallway intersection and froze. Someone stood there waiting already. The tall, orderly figure, head bent sideways. Motionless beneath the flickering lights, too tall, arms hanging too low, and behind it, more figures stood silently inside the dark patient rooms. Watching, the building wasn't abandoned. It was occupied by things pretending to remember what humans looked like. Tyler backed away slowly, breathing hard. Then the orderly figure took one step forward, and we finally heard its voice, a dry whisper, barely human. Visitation hours ended long ago. The lights overhead began shutting off one by one toward us. Pop darkness, closer, closer, like something moving through the ceiling above us, and somewhere behind. The pale lady whispered softly through the corridor. You shouldn't have looked at me. The lights kept dying toward us. Pop. Darkness swallowed another section of hallway. Pop. Closer, the orderly thing didn't rush. That somehow made it worse. It just kept walking slowly toward us as beneath the failing fluorescent lights. Arms hanging too low. Shoes scraping softly across the floor with every step. Behind us. Barefoot footsteps echoed through the corridor. The pale lady was following too. We were trapped between them. Mason grabbed my hoodie. This way. We turned hard into another side hallway without thinking. Big mistake. The corridor narrowed immediately. No windows, no exit signs. Only old hydrotherapy rooms lining both walls. Heavy rusted doors hanging half open. The smell down there was unbearable now. Wet concrete, rotting pipes, bleach soaked into old tile. And underneath it all, that burnt hair smell growing stronger. Tyler's breathing sounded ragged beside me. Tell me we're near the lobby. Nobody answered. Because we all knew we weren't. The hospital had changed. Or maybe we had crossed into some part of it we were never supposed to see. The farther we moved, the stranger the building became. Hallways looping incorrectly, doors leading to rooms that shouldn't fit inside the structure. At one point we passed the same overturned medicine cart 3 separate times. Same rust stains. Same broken wheel. Same flickering light overhead. Mason finally snapped. No. We already walked past this. Tyler looked pale now. Sweat covering his forehead despite the freezing air. That's impossible. But the deeper we went, less the word impossible seemed to matter. Then we heard the crying. Very faint. A woman sobbing softly somewhere nearby. Not dramatic crying, quiet crying, exhausted crying. The kind nurses probably heard every night in places like this decades ago. We stopped automatically. The sound came from room H12. The door sat barely open, dark inside. Tyler whispered, we shouldn't. But he still stepped closer. I remember wanting to stop him. I should have stopped him. Instead, Abby followed. The flashlight beam slid slowly through the doorway. Old hydrotherapy room. Cracked porcelain tub in the center. Chains hanging rusted beside the walls. And sitting at the far end of the room was a woman, facing away from us. Thin hospital gown, dark wet hair hanging down her back. Soft crying echoing through the room. The pale lady, except now she looked smaller somehow. Fragile, human, Mason whispered. Is she real? The crying stopped instantly. Silence filled the room. Then the woman spoke softly without turning around. I don't remember my face anymore. Every hair on my arm stood up. Something about her voice had changed. Less distorted now. Almost normal. Almost. Tyler raised the camera again slowly. Ma'am. The woman tilted her head slightly. I waited so long. Her shoulders trembled faintly. Everyone kept leaving. The room temperature dropped immediately, not gradually, instantly. Cold air crushed into my lungs hard enough to hurt. Our flashlight beams dimmed together. And then, woman began standing up, too slowly, bones cracking softly beneath her skin. One pop after another, her spine straightened in jerking motions that didn't look human anymore. And when she finally turned toward us, Mason screamed. Her face was wrong, not rotten, not mutilated, worse, blank. Like unfinished skin stretched over a human head. No eyes, no nose. Only a thin, smiling mouth trembling softly in the center of that pale flesh. Tyler staggered backward instantly, the camera nearly falling from his hands. And then every sink inside the hydrotherapy room exploded on at once. Rust-colored water poured violently from the faucets, fluting across the floor. The pale lady twitched suddenly, and the lights died. Darkness, clinic darkness. Then the screaming started, not hers, all around us. Patients, dozens of voices screaming somewhere deep inside the walls. Crying, begging. Metal doors slamming shut. Hospital alarms blaring faintly in the distance. The building sounded alive now, like we'd slipped backward into one terrible night, trapped inside its memory. I grabbed Tyler and Mason blindly. Move. We stumbled back into the hallway. The screaming followed us, echoing through vents, through walls, through the ceiling above us. And mixed inside those voices was laughter, soft T-mail close, too close. Tyler swung his flashlight behind us and froze. The pale lady stood at the end of the hallway again. Except she wasn't alone anymore. Figures lined the corridor beside her now. Patients, nurses, orderlies, all pale, all motionless, all staring directly at us with empty white eyes. Like the hospital itself had finally woken up. Mason broke first. He started running blindly down the corridor without warning. Mason. He disappeared around the corner instantly. We chased after him. But when we turned the corner, he was gone, just gone. No footsteps, no slammed door, nothing. Only another long hallway stretching endlessly ahead. Tyler grabbed my shoulder hard. This place is moving. I think that's when I finally accepted it. Not ghosts, not hallucinations. The building itself felt aware. Like Blackwater Psychiatric had become some kind of living thing after decades of pain soaked into its walls. And it wanted us inside it. The intercom crackled again overhead, then Mason's voice came through the speakers. Crying, panicked. "Help me," Tyler's face drained instantly. "Mason?" The voice continued through the ceiling speakers. "I can't find the stairs. She keeps standing closer every time I look away." Then screaming. Pure terror. The audio distorted violently before cutting dead. Tyler took off running immediately. "Mason!" I followed because I couldn't leave him alone in there. The hallway lights flickered rapidly as we ran, our shadows stretching unnaturally long across the walls. Then we found the security office. The door hung partially open. Old CRT monitors flickered weakly inside, and sitting directly in front of them was Mason. At first I thought we'd found him. Then I realized he wasn't moving. Tyler rushed forward. "Mason!" He grabbed his shoulder. Mason turned slowly toward us. His face looked drained, completely white. Eyes wide open, tears running silently down his cheeks. He pointed shakily toward the security monitors. I saw her move. His voice barely sounded human anymore. I finally saw her move. Tyler looked toward the screens, so did I, and I wish I hadn't. Every monitor showed different hospital hallways, different rooms, different floors. But the pale lady appeared in every single one, standing motionless, watching the cameras, watching us. And then one monitor showed the security office itself. Live footage. Us standing there, Mason sitting in the chair. Except there was one extra figure visible behind Tyler, tall, pale. Standing inches from him, Tyler saw it too. Slowly, he turned around. Nothing there. The room was empty behind him, but on the monitor, the pale lady remained standing directly at his back, smiling. And then she lifted one pale finger slowly toward the screen, pointing directly at me. The monitor image distorted violently. Stoshek swallowed the room, and suddenly, something cold touched the back of my neck. Not imagined, not psychological, a hand. Ice-cold fingers resting gently against my skin. Right behind me, a woman's voice whispered beside my ear, so soft I almost mistook it for breathing. "You looked away." I don't remember leaving the security office. That part is gone. There's no dramatic escape memory. No final chase through the corridors. No clear moment where we found the exit. Just fragment static. Screaming somewhere far away. Emergency lights flashing red through endless hallways. And the pale lady appearing closer every single time I blinked. The next thing I remember, clearly AB was outside. Lying face down in wet grass beside the parking lot, morning fog drifting over the broken fence line, sunlight barely rising behind the trees. For a few seconds, I genuinely thought none of it had happened. Then I saw the hospital, Blackwater standing silently behind me, wind and dark me. like it had never been awake at all. Tyler sat against the curb nearby, shaking uncontrollably. His camcorder lay smashed beside him. Mason was nowhere. At first, we thought he'd made it out before us. Maybe reached the car already. Maybe wandered off during the panic. We searched for him until police arrived around 7:12 a.m. They searched too. State police, local deputies, even volunteers later that week. Nothing, no footprints, no body, no sign he'd ever left the building. And officially, Blackwater Psychiatric Hospital was listed as structurally inaccessible for over 20 years, meaning nobody could explain how we even got inside. The county sealed the property 3 days later. Tyler never spoke publicly about what happened there. Not once. He quit YouTube completely, moved to Arizona. Last time I talked to him, he admitted something I still think about almost every night. He said he kept dreaming about hallways. The same hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, wheelchairs facing the walls, and the pale lady standing at the far end, waiting for him to look away first. As for me, Abby tried convincing myself trauma explained everything. Panic, sleep deprivation, mass hallucination, anything. Anything except the truth. But then the footage came back, or part of it did. About 2 weeks after Blackwater, Tyler mailed me the recovered hard drive from the camcorder. Most of the files were corrupted beyond repair, except one, a 23-second clip from the second floor hallway, the part where we first saw her inside room 216. I almost deleted it without watching. I should have. The footage starts normally dark hallway, flickering lights. The pale lady standing inside the room smiling at us. Then the lights fail. Static floods the screen. Tyler drops the camera briefly, and during those 3 seconds, lens points down the hallway behind us. That's when you see her move. Not walking, not running. She unfolds, like a broken thing remembering how joints work, one impossible twitch at a time. Her limbs stretching too far, her head jerking sideways violently, and in less than a second, she's suddenly standing directly behind us, watching completely silent. I threw up after seeing it. I'm not ashamed to admit that, because the worst part wasn't how she moved. It was Tyler's reaction. Neither of us noticed her standing there while it happened, meaning she had been close enough to touch us. Entire time, I deleted the footage afterward, or at least I thought I did. A month later, someone uploaded it again. Different account. No username, no description. Just the title, "Patient visitation hours are over." The video stayed online for 40 minutes before disappearing. But not before people noticed something we missed. In the reflection of Tyler's camera lens, you can briefly see another hallway behind the pale lady. A hallway that doesn't belong to Blackwater. It looks modern, clean walls, working lights, and at the very end of it, there's a woman standing motionless beside a hospital room door, pale skin, dark hair, watching the camera waiting. The worst part, a viewer recognized the hallway. It belongs to St. Vincent Medical Center. Chicago, still operational, still open. And according to the timestamp embedded in the recovered footage, that reflection wasn't recorded in 2023 when we entered Blackwater. It was recorded 3 days ago. So if you ever find yourself walking alone through a hospital at night, and you notice someone standing quietly at the end of the hallway, don't stare too long, and whatever you do, don't look away first. Sweet dreams, if you can.